Real.
Shalom,
Welcome,
shalom.
welcome back to another history lesson. Tonight we're going to be going over Joseph the Dreamer. Prepare for famine. My name is SHAMAR Yah. To my left is my brother
Yatazar Yah.
Yatazar Yah. And
Let's go.
overview of the story, I'm about to say, yeah, pretty much. If you don't know the story, Joseph was the dreamer. I believe the youngest son of Israel, Jacob, and he was the one. He was sold out by his brothers into Egypt. Ended up rising through power through the Spirit of the Most High, and ended up prevailing and being able to see his brethren. But we're actually going to view the history, the chapters, and the specifics. So we're going to open it up in Genesis chapter 30 and verse 1.
All right. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 30 and verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel invited her sister and said, go ahead.
She envied her sister.
Salakia.
And so Rachel wasn't able to have kids, and her sister Leah was able to. So she was envying the fact that Leah was able to build up Jacob's legacy by giving him children back to back, and she wasn't able to. Go ahead.
And said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die.
So, her maternal instincts were kicking in. She's like, I want to have a baby. Go ahead.
And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb?
So he said, look, I'm not the Most High. I'm doing my job. What more can I do for you? I'm not, the Heavenly Father. Drop down to verse 22.
Verse 22. And God remembered Rachel, and the Most High hearkened to her and opened her womb.
So the Most High gave her the ability to have a child. Go ahead.
And she conceived and bare a son, and said, the Most High had taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son.
So she had Joseph. That's when Joseph is hitting the scene, born to Rachel. I forgot that fast. I always mix those two up. We see, let's go to Genesis chapter 37. Start at verse 1.
All right, it's the book of Genesis chapter 37, verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. Mm-hmm. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report.
So Joseph was out there with his other brothers from the other women that Jacob had children by. Go ahead, verse 3.
Verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors.
That's what I wanted. So he made him a coat of many colors. He was like, he favored his son. He enjoyed him. And so he made him a coat of many colors that obviously makes him stand out. And it was kind of obvious. He was pretty bold in his favor towards his one child over his other. Go ahead.
And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him.
So they were very envious of their little brother. And it was so bad, it said they couldn't even speak peaceably. Like, good morning, whatever, nigga. Like,
right.
Like, damn, it's like that. But they was envious. Go ahead.
And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren. And they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binded sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, also stood upright, and behold, your sheaf stood round about and made obeisance to my sheaf.
So basically, obeisance is like obedience. They're pretty much giving his sheaf reverence, showing that his sheaf was in a position of authority over them. Go ahead.
And his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words.
So, we don't need that. There's a scripture in Sirach. It talks about, he that dreams, unless it be of the Lord, is a fool. But he said, I had a dream that you guys bowed. And they're like, man, what you saying? You saying that we just going to worship you, that we going to be, you going to be a Lord over us? So that had him even more upset. Go ahead.
And he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brethren and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me, and told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth?
So I always kind of laugh at this one because, the black household, you say the wrong thing. You don't get to finish your sentence. You're like, Mom, Dad, I had a dream that y'all was boom.
Yeah, right, boy.
Y'all was bow. You have another dream. You sitting there holding your eye. Right. I always laugh at that one because you have to really realize what he was doing as a child, mind you, as the youngest, going to all of his older brothers and his mother and father and saying, I had a dream that y'all bow down to me. Right. Man, that's crazy. Even trying to be spiritual, you'd be like, ooh, I don't like this. That, your pride get involved. But he was like, man, look, I'm telling y'all, I've been given these dreams of the Most High. Go ahead.
And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying.
So his father was like, okay, I can't necessarily say that you're wrong, or I can't necessarily see anything wrong with that. So he's like, I'm just going to keep a mental note of that and see what happens. Go ahead.
And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, here I am. And he said to him, go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren and well with thy flocks, and bring one word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem.
So he sent him out of, he came back to Shechem. He said, go check on your brethren, and just go check up on them, make sure everything's going smooth, and then come back and tell me what you see. Go ahead.
And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. Mm-hmm. And the man said, they are departed hence, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan.
Go ahead.
And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him.
So it's crazy. His own brothers. And it's crazy because I always have conversations where I say, man, can't nothing stop Israel but Israel. Every time we had a movement, even if we didn't have the knowledge of salvation or the knowledge of the Most High, say, for example, the Black Panthers, the Brown Berets, all these groups that have risen up, and it was always one of us that stopped the movement. And the crazy part about it is it be the people that surround you. So Joseph's brothers, before he even got up on him, they sitting there saying, man, here come this nigga Joseph, man. Hey, what we about to do about him? You heard what he said this morning? He said, we bowing. What we about to do about this? They planning on a little brother at that. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Come.
So they're like, oh, here comes this old dreamer down there. Go ahead.
Come now, therefore, and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams.
So they was like, well, let's kill him. Throw him in a pit and say an animal got to him, and then let's see how much his dreams come up now. Let's see how we're going to bow to him now. Well, you know what I'm saying? It's just total hatred. Go ahead.
Crazy. Yeah. At verse 21, and Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father again.
So Reuben was like, well, look, I don't think we should kill him. That'd be wrong. But let's just throw him in a pit, pretty much leave him to die. Technically, we didn't do it. But he said he was trying to come up with a compromise to appease his brethren so that he can come back later and save his little brother. Go ahead.
Verse 23, and it came to pass, when Joseph was come into his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it.
So they took stripped him, smote him, threw him in a pit, and they didn't have no water, didn't have no food. How was he supposed to survive? So they literally just left him for dead. Go ahead.
And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. Uh-huh. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content.
So he saw so mind you, after they threw him into the pit, they still chilling. They start eating while he's in there, starving and thirsty. They start chilling out. They're like, okay, I see some Ishmaelites coming out of Gilead. He's like, man, they ain't going, we can't be murderers. This is our brother. So it's like, how wicked people justify themselves. Well, I didn't technically kill him, but I just threw him in the pit, left him for dead.
Right.
Like, you killed him. So they was like, all right, look, well, there's no profit in it. Let us just sell him as a slave. At least we'll have some money in our pockets instead of just going home with nothing. So they was like, all right, that'll work. Go ahead.
Then there passed by Midianites, merchant men, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt.
So this is how Joseph gets into Egypt. He was sold unto some Ishmaelites as they were passing by, and they ended up going into Egypt with him. Go ahead.
And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes.
So that was later on in the day. So now Reuben comes back privately trying to see, all right, let me go get Joseph out of this pit. And Joseph was already gone. He had been sold. So then he started to panic. He started to lament for his brother because he doesn't know what happened to him. Go ahead.
And he returned unto his brethren and said, the child is not. And I, whither shall I go? And keep going.
No, go ahead.
And they took Joseph's coat and killed the kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood.
So they was like, man, we don't know what happened to him. We're not entirely sure. So let's get rid of anybody searching by just saying that he was killed, because we don't really know what happened to him. We can't bring a body back. But he was like, let's just, dip his coat in some blood, make it look like he was killed in the coat, and then we found just the coat left. That way, mystery solved. Go ahead.
And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Now whether it be by Salaki. Now, whether it be thy son's coat or no.
So they knew it was his, but they was like, this kind of look like the jacket that you gave Joseph. Is this his? They knew. Go ahead.
Man. And he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast had devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. He said, for I will go down into the grave until my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him.
So they gave Jacob the jacket covered in blood. He thought his son was dead, and he started ripping his clothes because he was like, man, I can't believe my son died. And then not only that he died, but, you don't even have the opportunity of saying goodbye. There is no real funeral that could be held because there's no body recovered. So, that's a really devastating feeling. And all the while, his brothers are just allowing their father to feel this mourning, this loss, all because of their envy. Go ahead.
And the Midianites sold him into Egypt, unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard.
So that's how he ends up with Potiphar. Let's see. Drop down to 39 verse 1.
Genesis chapter 39, verse 1.
Okay.
And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither.
Go ahead.
And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian.
So the Most High was still with Joseph. Even though he had gone through tribulation, he was still with him. Go ahead.
And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand.
And it was something different about him. They see the way he's moving, the way that other people are moving. They're like, man, everything he seems to touch is just, it booms when he touches it. Go ahead.
And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him. And he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hand.
So he was like, look, I see the way that everything you touch is becoming successful. Come into my house. You're going to be over everything. I want you to take care of everything and keep doing what you're doing, because I already know that you're a very prosperous man. Go ahead.
And it came to pass from the time that he made him overseer in the house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian house for Joseph's sake. And the blessings of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field.
He said he blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. He said, I'm not going to take away my gifts from Joseph now that he's gotten a position completely predicated upon what I've been giving him. For his reputation's sake, for his name's sake, I'm going to continue to bless what he's doing. And because he was working for the Egyptian was blessed. Go ahead.
And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored.
So he was so favored, he said, look, I don't even know what's going on in here. He said, I know as long as you're in charge of it, I'm good. He said, I don't know anything that I have or anything that you're doing outside of what I sit down and I eat every day. Outside of that, everything else is in your hands. Go ahead.
And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me.
She started taking a liking to him. She's like, man, I see the way you move. You just so successful. She like, yeah, I want you. Go ahead.
But he refused. He said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I. Neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. And how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against the Most High? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her.
So Potiphar's wife became desirous of Joseph, and she was trying to convince him. Joseph was like, I'm not going to do that because you're the only thing that I can't touch. He said, I have, basically, I got a good thing going here. I'm not going to throw that away for this sin. He said, I'm not going to do that against the Most High. Go ahead.
And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out.
So Joseph, she was thirsty. She literally grabbed him by the garment and was like, look, I want you. So he fought against her, ended up getting loose, but she was holding on so tight, she ripped a part of his garment off. So I mean, she was going for it. Go ahead.
And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, see, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out.
So she was like, look, Joseph tried to sleep with me, and I had to fight him off. That's why I ripped a piece of his garment, and when I screamed, he ran. So she set him up. Basically, it was the old, he raped me kind of thing. Go ahead.
Verse 16. And she laid upon his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Go ahead. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand and all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whosoever they did there, he was the doer of it.
So Potiphar's wife sold Potiphar the same story. He tried to rape me. I fought him off. I tore a piece of his garment. You got to do something about it. So, you give somebody all that trust, you literally have given him so much power. You're like, dude, I don't even know what's in my accounts. I don't know what's in my storehouses. I'm literally trusting you with everything that I have. And when he felt like, Joseph tried to sleep with his wife, he felt betrayed. So he's like, man, I'm going to give him the worst punishment I can give him. Put him in the keeper of the committed him to the keeper of the prison, put him in prison. And even there, the Most High was still with him. So, and that's another thing I want to say real quick while we're on this point. A lot of people always say, something going wrong. You ain't keeping the commandments. Like, nah, because I'm keeping the commandments, something's going wrong. It's not always to guarantee that we're going to have, prosperous success by keeping the laws in a land of captivity. There are certain things that certain Jakes, you can see who's moving because certain people in captivity are doing well and they're not sacrificing themselves or sacrificing their integrity, their morals, etc. But we're still going to go through things in this truth because Joseph was innocent. And look at all that transpired. He was betrayed by his brethren. He was betrayed by Potiphar's wife who, didn't necessarily have any loyalty towards him, but she still chose to throw him under the bus over something that, she didn't have to do in the first place. He still took losses, major losses. But even in prison, he became the keeper of the prison. So now he's in the same position because everywhere he's going, Most High is blessing him. So it's not to say that the Most High, that we won't go through turbulent times, but that the Lord will be with us through those turbulent times. Did you read verse 23?
No.
Go ahead.
Verse 23. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper.
So even the keeper of the prison, same thing. He was like, man, Joseph's so skilled, I don't really have to do anything. He just brings everything to me. It's running smooth. That's it. Drop down chapter 40. Actually, read verse 1 because we need that.
Genesis chapter 40, verse 1.
Come.
And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in a ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound.
So the chief of the butlers and the chief of the bakers in Pharaoh's house, he jailed in the same prison that Joseph was he had authority over. Excuse me. Go ahead.
And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continued a season inward. Mm-hmm. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. Uh-huh. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with them in the ward of his lord's house, saying, wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to the Most High? Tell me them, I pray you.
So the butler and the baker both had dreams that they couldn't understand. So they were upset about it because they're like, man, this seems important. I just don't know the meaning. So Joseph came unto him. He was like, well, I'll pray on them, or I'll be a mediator between you and the Most High to get the understanding of that dream. Go ahead.
And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me. Mm-hmm. And in the vine were 3 branches, and was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth. And the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. Mm-hmm. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. And I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Uh-huh. And Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Mm-hmm. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head and restore thee unto thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner, when thou wast his butler.
So he said, man, good news. That dream, the 3 vines are 3 days. So in 3 days' time, you'll be back to where you were. You'll be back to serving Pharaoh. Everything's going to work out for you, essentially. Go ahead.
But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. Uh-huh. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon.
So all Joseph said, look, man, when you get on, just don't forget me. That's all I ask. Just don't forget me. Go ahead.
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. Mm-hmm. And in the uppermost basket, there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh. And the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. Uh-huh. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee.
So he hit him with some heavy news.
Man.
So look, yours, it don't mean prosperity. You're going to be dead in 3 days. You imagine you got 3 days to live, and you in prison. You don't even get to enjoy it. You just know it's coming now. So yeah, you're going to die. You're going to be hung, and those birds eating out the top of the basket, that's going to be them eating at the top of your head, off your flesh. Go ahead.
Verse 20. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. He lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him?
So, you know, it ended up happening exactly like Joseph interpreted, but unfortunately, in all of his success, he completely forgot, you know, who helped him get to that point, or, you know, who helped him in his time of need. Completely forgot about Joseph. And then the other guy, he actually did get killed. And I believe it's in Deuteronomy, the scriptures say, you know, a prophet is known if he comes with a dream and says, you know, this is going to happen. You wait until that dream passes to determine whether or not he was a prophet. So Joseph had the spirit of the Lord. He was like, yeah, this is what's really happening. Just don't forget about me. But he ended up being forgotten. Let's go to Genesis. Drop down. Drop down to verse 8.
Just book of Genesis, chapter 41 and verse 8. And it came to pass
I'm sorry. Go to verse 1 first.
Verse 1?
Yeah.
Genesis 41 and 1. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years.
2 full years. This whole time, Joseph is in prison. 2 years.
Man.
So like I said, you know, Jakes that always say tribulation or all this stuff is going wrong because you're not keeping the commandments. That could be partly true, but I'm not going to sit up here and give you the impression that keeping the commandments and being a righteous man is going to absolve you from any kind of tribulation. That's not what happened. Look at Yahweh Shai. If anyone deserved a peaceful death and a peaceful life, it was him. But he was made the biggest sacrifice for all of us. A man with no sin, with no fault, to be delivered to, you know, unto death for people that hated him. So, you know, I don't want to, I just want to offer some kind of balance to that perspective of, you know, keeping the commandments is all you need. And you're still going to go through stuff because you have to be proved. Go ahead.
That Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored, kind, and fat-fleshed, and they fled in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kind came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other and stood by the other kind upon the brink of the river.
Actually, keep going.
And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kind did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kind, so Pharaoh awoke.
So Pharaoh jumped up out of his sleep because he saw 7 animals. I think a kind is a deer, but he saw 7 animals. 7 of them were, you know, fat. They looked healthy. And then 7 of them looked like skeletons. And the skeletons got out and ate the fat, healthy-looking ones. So Pharaoh jumped up out of his sleep. Drop down to verse 8.
Verse 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh.
We skipped verse 6 and 7, but that was also the dream, similar dream, I believe. I'm sorry, let's just read it. Verse 6 and 7 real quick.
Verse 6. And behold, 7 thin ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream.
So he had a dream that 7 ears of corn that were lean looking or, that were lean looking ate the 7 fat corn. So he's seeing death or tribulation swallow up prosperity. And so he keeps waking up out of his sleep because he's like, man, what does this mean? Drop down to verse 8. Now we have verse 8.
Verse 8. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh.
So he went unto all the wise men that he had at his disposal, and nobody can answer what his dreams meant. Go ahead.
Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, and we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream, he did interpret.
So he had an epiphany. He's like, Joseph, I remember when I was in jail, when you locked me up, I met a young Hebrew man who could interpret dreams. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored into mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came unto Pharaoh.
So the baker was telling him, like, man, this guy's legit. The exact interpretations he gave us is what happened. So he was like, yeah, call Joseph out of this prison. So Joseph cleans himself up and he goes to go present himself before Pharaoh. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. The Most High shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
So Joseph gave all credit to the Most High. He said, all praises, but it's the Most High that's giving me this. I'm just a vessel. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, in my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, fat-fleshed and well-favored. And they fed in a meadow, and behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw all in the land of Egypt for badness.
So it's like, so the first 7, they're in a meadow, they're eating, they look fat, they look healthy. He said the other one, it looked terrible. They was just super skinny. He said, I've never seen anything like that in all of Egypt look this bad. Go ahead.
And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke.
He said 7 starving, the 7 starving ones ate the 7 healthy ones, but they still looked like they were starving. He was like, I didn't understand it. Because if you eat something that's going to fill you up like that, you're supposed to reflect it. He said they still looked like they were starving. Go ahead.
And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me.
He said he saw the same thing with the corn. The 7 starving corn rose up and ate the 7 favored corn, the healthy looking ones. And he said, no one can answer what this means. Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. The Most High hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine.
So he tells them, and the kine are like a type of cattle. So he's like the 7 starving cattle and the 7 healthy ones. He said that's one, and the other one is one. He said, but that means famine. That means that there's going to be a famine to come in. Go ahead.
This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What the Most High is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh.
So he said the Most High is about to bring something into this land, but he's giving you a warning first. Go ahead.
Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt.
He said, so good news is it's about to be 7 years of prosperity. Everything's going to go great, dandy. Hell, it's going to exceed for 7 whole years. Go ahead.
And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. And all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land.
He said, and for all 7 of those years, it's going to come 7 years that's even worse than the prosperity you experienced. And it's going to be, he said, it's going to be so bad, the prosperity is going to be forgotten. And it's a scripture in Sirach that says, in a time of adversity, you forget prosperity. And in a time of prosperity, you forget adversity. Go ahead.
And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous.
Can you imagine? It's crazy because I was thinking about it. You ever had, first and foremost, 7 good years of fortune? You ever had 7 good years?
Man,
You didn't get as an Israelite, you'd be happy to have 7 good days.
Right,
like, man, didn't nothing really mess up my week this week, let alone 7 months or taking it further 7 years. He said, look, it's going to be 7 years of just prosperity. Everything's going to go right for you. And then for 7 years, it's going to be bad. So it's going to be so bad, you're going to forget. And the crazy part about it that stands out to me in that is like when you're going through hard times, there's still people that you can come together with and y'all laugh about the good times. You know what I'm saying? You get cold, you think about the warm days, and it kind of pushes you through. He said, it's going to be so bad, y'all not even going to mention the good times anymore. Nobody want to hear that. Like, man, y'all remember we used to eat? Like, I'm starving right now. That's not helping.
Right.
I don't want to hear about the food we used to be.
Right.
Like, man, that's some tough times. Like, that's real tough. He said, yeah, it's going to happen, but you have an opportunity. Go ahead.
All right, verse 32. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by the Most High, and the Most High will shortly bring it to pass.
So he said the 2 dreams are the exact same thing, but he said the Most High showed it to you twice to confirm. It ain't no fluke. This is what's going to happen. Go ahead.
Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities.
So he's basically telling Pharaoh, actually read verse 36 and I'm going to explain.
Verse 36, and that food shall be forestore to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine.
So he said for 7 years, when that prosperity is there, take some and put it to the side. Make sure that you're saving. Make sure that you're, preparing yourself, because once those bad years come along, all that food that you saved up is going to be for those times to maintain you. That otherwise, everyone's going to starve. Go ahead.
And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such one as this is, a man in whom the spirit of the Most High is?
So, I'm sorry. It's kind of funny because Joseph was like, you better find someone that can prepare and someone that's wise, like knowing that's him. But he was real smooth with it. He had an aspect of humility on him. He's like, yeah, you better find somebody that you trust to prepare you. And so Pharaoh was like, man, who better for the job than you? Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as the Most High hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Mm-hmm. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than you.
He said, look, I'm going to be the face, but you're going to be the driving force behind everything that's happening in Egypt. I'm just going to be the one to actually stand up there as an Egyptian and not raise questions, but you're going to be doing the work. He said, man, you a wise, discreet man. Who can do it better than you? Go ahead.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the 2nd chariot which he had. And they cried before him, bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Mm-hmm. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt.
So he gave him some serious power. Decked him out, got him a nice chariot, nice garment, threw a chain on. He had him in the chariot right next to him. Everybody bowed down. Like, man, he was in a position of power quick. He said, and can't nobody lift a hand or a foot without you knowing, Joseph, without you saying, go or stop. He said, it's all going to happen through you. So Joseph came into a real fortunate position, especially considering the situation. Go ahead.
And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah. I've butchered that, Salakia. And he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of uh, Pot,
Potipharah.
Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt.
Let me see. Keep going.
And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls.
So he said when it was coming in good. Joseph was in charge. Everything started being successful, and it's crazy because almost immediately after he gave him the dream, he set him up over everything, and that's when the plenteous came. So it's still people are looking like, Pharaoh ain't never had it like this. Joseph, as soon as he became in charge, land's just giving handfuls. Like, man, it's more than we can handle. Go ahead.
And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number.
So he gathered so much, he said, look, I'm not even keeping count anymore. We have a lot, though. Go ahead.
And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him.
So the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, she gave him 2 sons, and we know those 2 sons are Ephraim and Manasseh. Actually, he's about to explain it. My bad. Go ahead.
And Joseph called the name the firstborn Manasseh, for the Most High said, He hath made me forget all my toil in all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for the Most High hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction.
So he's like, man, my first son, he made me forget all my hard times. And then my second son, Ephraim, is because he was like, man, Ephraim meaning fruitful. He's like, man, everything that I've touched since I've been out here has just been going good for me. All praises. Go ahead, 53.
53. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread.
How bad it got to be dearth?
I know, dearth.
He said it was dirty. It's looking dirty over there. So he said, man, it was bad, but all these other lands started to suffer, but Egypt had bread because they used Joseph, the wisdom that Most High instilled within Joseph. Right. Go ahead.
And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph. What he said to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold it to the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt.
So when the people came to Pharaoh, Pharaoh was like, look, go talk to Joseph, see what he got for y'all, because I don't have nothing. So Joseph opened up the storehouses, and he started to sell, and as he's selling over the process of time, things are just getting worse and worse in the land of Egypt. 42 started verse 3.
Just the book of Genesis chapter 42 verse 3. And Joseph 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt.
So Jacob saw like, okay, everybody's starving, Egypt's still looking good, so here, take this money, y'all go to Egypt just so that we can survive. Go ahead.
But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him.
So peradventure just means perhaps. So he was like, look, I'm not sending Benjamin. He's like, I don't want to send him because I don't want anything to happen to him. Go ahead.
And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth.
So everybody was coming to Joseph. Joseph was the man. So it's booming like the 80s. So everybody has to come to him to be able to buy and sell. And imagine, he doesn't just have a product or a service. This is useful for life. You want to survive, you got to go to Joseph. That's how much wealth and power he had by the simple principle of, in a time of prosperity, put some to the side for later. Go ahead.
And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself stranger to them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence come ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food.
So they're like, man, we had to travel. Ain't no food from here to Canaan. And the crazy part about it is, and I want to highlight this for a moment, we're at a time where this principle is teaching us, save what you can while you can. And I remember, I think the day that the brother called me to do the lesson, I was talking to my grandpa. My grandpa is huge with money. Every time I get around him, grandson, he just want to talk about money. And his biggest advice is always save. He was like, every time, he said, you work 2 jobs his whole life. One of them he actually lived off of. The other one, he just put the money to the side. Discipline. And I definitely think he was unbalanced in some of the things that he did, but his mentality of financial stability was there. And he said, I don't care if you get a raise, don't change nothing. Because most people, they get a raise, I want a new phone, I'm about to go put an extra $100 on a car. You about to do something that's going to create you or put you back into the same situation. And then if you're really bad, you'll become what's called what I refer to as a financial hostage. And that's, I need to do this or I need to do that, but I can't do anything because I don't have any free money. Your apartment go up on the rent. You're like, man, we need to find a cheaper place. Well, you don't have the money to be able to put to the side for the first and last month's the deposit because you barely scraping by as it is. So you're forced to pay more money towards an apartment that you can barely afford, and you're unable to go seek something that'll be more conducive financially because you don't have the money. That's a financial hostage. You stuck. Your finances is holding you up. So you always want to save and put something to the side. So save while you can, save what you can while you can. Reason why I'm saying this is we're in the land of modern day Egypt, right? Oftentimes, of course, you want to focus on doing the works, but the scriptures do talk about tribulation. It talks about the bad times. We've already had the dreams of other prophets to educate us as to what's going to befall this land. Take, a reasonable amount of money, whatever you can do per month, even if it's only $20. Take something and start storing and preparing for the famine. Preparing for the things that are to come that Christ talked about. Prepare for these times the same way our forefathers did. That's why, a lot of people say the Bible is not just all thou shalt or thou shalt not. There's financial advice in the Bible. There's marriage advice in the Bible. It teaches you how to deal with your spouse. There's a lot of things. There's, everything that you can imagine or you could think of that you need help with. There is a guidance in the Bible. Now, your execution is up to you, but the Bible gives you the knowledge. Now, you have to apply it using wisdom. Man, when, we know this land is coming to an end. Save what you can while you can. I'll keep it there. Go ahead, read on.
And this is verse 8. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies. To see the nakedness of the land you are come. So
Joseph recognized his brothers, but because he had aged or changed so much in the time that he was gone, they didn't even recognize him. So he remembered the time that he had the dream saying they would bow to him. So he like, man, he kind of started getting on some get back. He like, nah, y'all spies. Start giving them trouble. Go ahead.
And they said unto him, Nay, my Lord, but to buy food are thy servants come.
So they had to humble down. They're like, nah, we just here to get some food. No, my Lord, we just here to eat. Go ahead.
We are all one man's son. We are true men, thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come.
Is that the worst feeling? You innocent? And they just like, nah. No. But go ahead.
And they said, Thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I speak unto you, saying, You are spies.
Say, y'all want me 12 brothers? All y'all brothers? That's a lot of kids. He said, nah, man, y'all spies. Y'all coming and seek out the land. That don't even make no sense. Go ahead.
Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither.
He said, all right, I got a test for y'all. Say y'all 12 brethren. All right, one's dead. The youngest stay back. He said, bring your youngest brother here. And then I'll say that you guys are clear. He said, other than that, on the life of Pharaoh, this ain't going down. So it got serious quick. Go ahead.
Send one of you and let them fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies.
Said on Pharaoh. I need you to bring your little brother back. And until he gets here, you spending time in prison. It's crazy how, that came full circle. Joseph was in prison because of them, and now they're in prison because of Joseph. Go ahead.
And he put them all together into the ward 3 days.
Drop down to verse 25.
Verse 25. Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn.
I'm sorry.
Go on.
23. Yes, sir.
Come on. Verse 23. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter.
So they didn't even know that he was a Hebrew, because he was using the interpreter to maintain his
identity.
Yeah, his what do you call that? Anonymousness? That's not it.
Well, I mean,
anonymity, I think is the word. He wanted to maintain his anonymity. So he spoke to them through an interpreter and didn't reveal that he was even a Hebrew to them. Go ahead.
Verse 24. And he turned himself about from them and wept. And he returned to them again and communed with them and took from them Simeon and bound him before their eyes.
So he started crying. He's like, man, I can't, it's got to be a lot rushing through his head.
Yeah.
Like, man, do I hug him? Do I punch him? Should I, he's confused. He's conflicted in the way that he feels. So he's like, look, bring out Simeon. He bounds him in front of all of them, and then he takes him. Go ahead.
Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn and to restore every man's money into a sack and to give them provision for the way. And thus did he unto them. And they laded their asses with the corn and departed thence.
So they got on. Go ahead.
And as one of them opened his sack to give his ass provender in the inn, he espied his money. For behold, it was in his sack's mouth.
So he took some of the food off and he was trying to feed his donkey. And then he realizes, like, oh, snap, my money's still in here. Go ahead.
And he said unto his brethren, my money's restored. And lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, what is this that the Most High hath done unto us?
So they started panicking, because there's a lot of different ways that can go down. Joseph can be a bookkeeper. He see that exactly that much money is missing. He kills Simeon, because remember, he held some of their brethren. Or it could be that when they return, they bring Benjamin, but now now I'm not going to lock y'all up for being spies. I believe you, but now I'm going to lock you up for being thieves.
Right.
So they panicking like, man, what we about to do? What we about to do? Go ahead.
And they came unto Jacob their father into the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, the man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, we are true men, we are no spies. We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan.
So they was like, look, Dad, he was rude. He was like, he was mean, Dad. He was mean, Dad, but he held our brethren. He was like, we got to go back. Drop down to verse 12.
Go back to 12. Okay. Verse 12.
43 and 12? You said go back?
Oh,
43 and 12. Yes, sir.
Genesis 43 and verse 12. And take double money in your hand, and the money that was brought again in the mouth of your sacks, carry it again in your hand. Peradventure it was an oversight. Take also your brother and arise, go again unto the man.
So he was like, look, take double your money. Maybe we made a mistake. Maybe I gave y'all too much money, or maybe they accidentally gave the money back. He said, but take double the money just in case. Because you don't want to show up for the first time. We ran off with $1,500 worth of food and $1,500. If we come back with just $1,500, that's the problem. He said, all right, well, take the $3,000. That way you pay for the food that you already ate, and you can get some more. Go ahead.
Take also your brother and arise, go again unto the man. And the Most High Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may send away your other brother and Benjamin. If I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved.
He said, man, Most High have mercy on y'all. Take the money, take Benjamin. He said, hopefully he'll just go for the money, and he'll give Simeon back. He'll give Benjamin back, and then we can all just continue on. But he said, man, something happened to y'all. What can we do? Go ahead.
And the men took that present, and they took double money in their hand, and Benjamin, and rose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the ruler of his house, bring these men home and slay and make ready, for these men shall dine with me at noon.
So he had him kill a fresh animal. He said, all right, well, start cooking dinner. He said, tonight I'm going to have a dinner and I'm going to host with these men.
And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time are we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us for bondmen in our asses.
They panicking at the dinner table. Like, we finna die. Bro, it's over. What do you think is about to happen? They're like, man, we in his house. Ain't no clean getaway because you're going to have to rough somebody up. Like, maybe it's that, like, that fear because, you know, they know they was foul. They don't know what's going to happen. But I know secretly or deep down, they already understand, like, man, this is the Most High doing this to us. I believe somebody mentions it. Go ahead.
And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they communed with him at the door of the house, and said, "Oh, sir, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass when we came to the inn that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight. And we have brought it again in our hand. And other money have we brought down in our hands too to buy food."
So they was like, look, man, it was a mix-up last time we was here. They trying to figure it out because they like, we don't know if he's going to come in here with a bunch of guards while we're in his house and arrest us. So he go try to talk to somebody to get it sorted out. Like, hey, look, there was a mix-up last time we was here. We ended up getting our money back. So, look, here's the first batch of food's money. We also want to buy this much more. Go ahead.
"We cannot tell you who put our money in our
I
sacks."
said, we don't know what it was there when I got. That's the worst excuse. It was like that when I found it. He's like, oh, I know he lied. Yeah, but go ahead.
And he said, "Peace be to you, fear not. Your power and the Most High, the power of your father, hath given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." And he brought Simeon out unto them.
He's like, don't worry about it. I did that. Go ahead.
And the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their asses provender. And they made ready the presents against Joseph came at noon. For they heard that they should eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed themselves to him to the earth.
So Joseph comes in, and they all bow down. Drink, mission complete. There it is. Go ahead.
And he asked them of their welfare, and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom ye spake, is he yet alive?"
Go ahead.
And they answered, "Thy servant our father is in good health. He is yet alive." And they bowed down their heads and made obeisance. Obeisance. I'm gonna get that right.
It's all good. So the servants came in and they bowed unto Joseph. They were like, yeah, he said, man, is the old man that y'all was talking about, your dad, is he still alive? He said, yeah, he's still alive. So Joseph, they not knowing that Joseph is their brother. So he's really asking about his dad, saying, like, is dad okay? I haven't seen him in who knows how many years. Is he even still alive? So, he was gone for a long time. That's a long time to be away from your people, away from your brethren, people that look, or I can't say necessarily look like you because the Egyptians were melanated, but your language. You know what I'm saying? You're given a totally different life against your will at that. Go ahead.
Verse 29, and he lifted up his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your brother? Is this your younger brother of whom ye spake unto me?" And he said, "The Most High be gracious unto thee, my son." And Joseph made haste, for his bowels did yearn upon his brother, and he sought where to weep. And he entered into his chamber and wept there.
So he was just so overwhelmed just to be able to see his brethren and his little brother that he had to step aside for a minute and just cry. Go ahead.
And he washed his face and went out and reframed himself and said, "Set on bread."
So he got cleaned up and he was like, set the table. Go ahead.
And they set on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians which did eat with them by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians.
They still hated us even back then and said, like, we're not eating with the Hebrews. They all was separate. Go ahead.
And they set before him the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men marveled one at another.
No, go ahead, finish that up.
And he took and sent messes unto them from before him. But Benjamin's mess was 5 times so much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with them.
So they ended up having a good time. And Benjamin, he ended up giving him 5 times more as any of the other brethren. Read on chapter 44, verse 1.
And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the man's sack with food as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack mouth.
Actually, we're going to drop down to 45, 1 through 5. So what ended up happening is Joseph had a dinner, and he ended up sending them out on their way, but he put a chalice that he had into one of their bags. And so he ended up saying that they had stole from him and brought him back. Drop down to 45. Start at verse 1.
Our book of Genesis, chapter 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. And he cried, because every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren.
So when they found out that they had the chalice and they ended up getting caught, and they came back, stood before Joseph, Joseph was interrogating them. He gave him a hard time, but then he ended up just breaking down and crying because he was like, man, y'all my brothers. Go ahead.
And he wept out loud. And the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard.
So everybody in the house, and you hear somebody crying, like, yeah, well, who is that? That's how, because, he had a heavy heart. He had been through so much. Like I said, that could be really conflicting because of people that, you love to have hurt you so bad, but you still have that love for them, but it still brings up that pain. So he was in a tough spot. He started crying. And, he just let it out. Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence.
They were stuck. They're like, damn, this is just like, right. Let alone for him to be alive. But for him to be alive and you the second in command of all of Egypt, and you the one that we have to consistently buy food from, giving us a hard time. They're starstruck. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither, for the Most High did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest.
Drop down to verse 10.
In verse 10. And thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty.
So we're going to skip ahead for the sake of time, but he set his brethren up in the land of Goshen. So that's where the Israelites were residing. And that was also they said the best land. He gave them a good piece of land. We're going to drop down to 46 and 20 to get Joseph's sons.
Just the book of Genesis, chapter 46, verse 20.
Mm-hmm.
And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him.
So Joseph had his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Drop down to 47. Let's get verse 11. Like I said, we coming close to the time.
Genesis chapter 47, verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses.
Go ahead.
As Pharaoh had commanded.
Uh-huh.
And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their families.
So Joseph was the man. He single-handedly gave them the best land, gave them their own land. It wasn't just to beat up, the project life. He said, I'm going to give y'all the best land. And he was single-handedly the person that was feeding all of their houses. You don't need to bow to me at this point. I already, you know, you don't come to me, you don't eat. That's obeisance. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they brought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money fell in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth." And Joseph said, "Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail."
So they was like, look, don't nobody want money no more because it's so bad out here. I'm not willing to trade my lives for some money because that money, somebody else is not going to be willing to trade their lives for some paper. It got so bad, like money wasn't worth anything. And again, drawing it back to America, we've already seen Venezuela. They were, what do you call that? Destabilized entirely. And, you know, we all saw the popular pictures. It's been like that for years. I don't think the conditions of their land has changed at all, where they just had, it was millions of dollars in the streets because no one cared. Money was so unimportant. It's like, man, I'm not going to, because like you said, if you go to a shop or you have a baker and that's where you get all your bread from, if he runs out of flour, he's not going to keep the shop open to get some money. He's going to go take whatever he has left in the shop and feed it to his family. So when money was no longer as valuable as the resources that were being exchanged, Joseph was like, well, if money's not a currency, bring me your animals. So literally taking, because that's the last thing that they had, not only for food, but, you know, hides come from animals, horns, instruments, but that's also how you deal with your land. So he pretty much was taking all of the little bit of power or substance that they had left and was saying, you know, if y'all want to survive, bring me your animals. I'll take those in exchange for, you know, however much food I say they're worth. So he had real power just implementing these principles, these very simple principles. And this is the last point I'm going to bring up because I remember the one of the things that my grandpa said that always stuck with me: it's better to give than to receive. He says, you know why, grandson? I was like, why? He said, because in order to give, you have to have something to give. But if you're receiving, you're at the mercy of somebody that chooses whether or not they're going to give to you or not. I was like, man, that's always stuck with me, to try to be in a position to where, you know, maybe not necessarily to the extent of Joseph, but always in a position to where you can make the moves. And, you know, you're writing up the contracts for other people to sign as opposed to, you know, selling yourself short because of your predicaments. But go ahead.
Verse 17. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year.
So they don't, like I said, they don't have any power. They can't run to other lands on the horses. They can't till their land and start trying to get back on their feet with their oxen. Everything went to Joseph. Go ahead.
When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, We will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent.
They said, we ain't go front, man. We broke. Go ahead.
My lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord but our bodies and our land.
They said, man, you know we broke, and we done gave up the animals. They said, we don't have nothing left but our bodies and the land that we have. But the land's not bringing nothing up, so that's of no value. And if we don't have something to continue to go on, we're starving, that's of no value. Go ahead.
Right. Verse 19, wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us in our land for bread, and we in our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's.
So everything was under Pharaoh's name because they literally didn't have anything. They was like, all right, well, you own me and you own my land now because that's all I have left to be able to exchange for survival. So, you know, and that's another thing about the whole Kemetic doctrine. You know, Egypt was great. You know, all of our people, Egypt was great first and foremost, a big portion because of Israel. Had Joseph not been there, Egypt would have been wiped out. Hell, the known world in that area would have been wiped out. So everything still comes from the Hebrews,
Con.
or the survival of these civilizations is coming from the Hebrews. The glory is of the Hebrews, and the glory of the Hebrews is the Most High. So the Most High was, what I'm saying, that it's still this God. It's not Ra. It's not all the gods of the Egyptians. It's the Most High Yahweh. And through him putting his spirit upon Joseph, Joseph was that link. Joseph was that middle ground, that middleman. Was that verse 20?
That was 20.
Yes, sir. Let's drop down 48, start at verse 1.
The book of Genesis, chapter 48, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, Behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, Behold, thy son Joseph cometh unto thee. And Israel strengthened himself and sat upon the bed.
Drop down to verse 8.
Verse 8. And Israel behold Joseph's sons and said, Who are these?
So he's an old man. He can't really do much. He's bedridden at this point. So he sits up in the bed and he sees these two kids. He said, Who are these little people? Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his father, They are my sons, whom the Most High hath given me in this place. And he said, Bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them.
So these are little people. That's funny. He said, These are my kids, man. He's like, I had kids all this time that I've been gone. So Jacob said, All right, well, bring your kids forward. And the same favor that I had unto you, I'm going to pass down unto your sons. Go ahead.
Now the eyes of Israel were dim for age, so that he could not see. He brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them.
So Jacob was very old, and he was blind, but he still gave them a hug and a kiss. Go ahead.
And Israel said unto Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, the Most High hath showed me also thy seed. And Joseph brought them from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth.
So he was like, man, Jacob was telling him, I didn't even think I was ever going to see you again, let alone to see you alive. And he said, man, it's crazy to see that you're now a man with your own kids. So they all bowed next to Jacob in front of him. Go ahead.
And Joseph took them both, Ephraim and his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh and his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands winningly. For Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, The Most High, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the Most High which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. And let my name be named on them in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth.
So Jacob blessed them. He said, the same angel that blessed me, bless these boys. Go ahead.
And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. He held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head.
So because his father was blind, he was like, oh, nah, you're not supposed to be giving the younger the blessing. The older is supposed to give the blessing. He's the firstborn. And he tried to move his father's hand to the proper spot because he thought, my father's old, he's blind. Go ahead.
And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his hand.
So he said, put your hand upon his head. This is my firstborn. Go ahead.
And his father refused and said, I know it, my son. I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations.
So he's like, nah, I didn't do that by mistake. I know what I'm doing. He said the younger is going to prevail, more greatly than his older brother. Go ahead.
And he blessed them that day, saying, And thee shall Israel bless, saying, The Most High make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but the Most High shall be with you, and bring you again into the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite, with my sword and with my bow.
So he blessed him. He was like, look, and I gave you an extra portion, that I took when I was younger. Drop down to Exodus 1. We're going to read 6 through 8 for the sake of time. But, we we got a decent chunk of it, but go through and read that history because it's a really amazing story, and it also really teaches you the principle of faith, the principle of staying dedicated and strong, even when things are, you come across that time of tribulation. The scriptures tell you, woe unto those that have lost patience. Joseph was patient. And he had every right to sit up here and try to break out of prison. Like, man, this is some BS. I don't belong. I don't deserve to be here. He was well within his rights to be inflamed in anger with his brethren and try to have them killed. He was the man. If he would said they are spies, that would have been it. They would have been, scooping up bodies off the sand, taking them somewhere to be buried. But Joseph was a righteous man. He trusted in the Most High, and he employed the principles of preparation. And because he was prepared for that famine, not only did Israel prosper and come into a great place, but all of the servants and all of the land of Egypt had to come unto Joseph and be his servant in addition to his brethren. And everybody was coming to Israel or coming to Joseph, because of those principles. And you're like, man, everything was going through him, all through preparation. So in this time, as we see that things are on a decline, as we see the signs that Yahushua talked about, as we see the things that are happening in, I believe, First and Second Ezra, this is our opportunity to really prepare. This is our opportunity to take resources and not live according to the ideology of America, the ideology of Egypt, but really start to put away and save so that those great days or those terrible days will be somewhat, if at all, prepared for. But the Most High said, I fed the birds, and how much more important are you than a fowl? So, of course, at the end of the day, our trust is in the Most High, but we still try to do what we can to prepare if that's possible. Go ahead.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 1.
Drop down verse 6.
Verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them.
Uh-huh.
Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out of any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So, for the sake of time, we're gonna get one last one. Proverbs 22:3. So, after Joseph, there rose up a Pharaoh that didn't know about Joseph, and so he wasn't concerned about the legacy that he left behind, but he started to be concerned about, this is an Egyptian land, but I'm seeing more Hebrews, and they're everywhere. They outnumber us, and they're in positions of power because Joseph was in that position of power. So he said, look, we got to come give them something to do, or give them, basically start killing them off. He started initiating a culling, so to start trying to reduce the population and put the people to work so they wouldn't be able to join themselves unto Egypt's enemies. So we know this is the same Pharaoh that dealt with Moses. This is the same Pharaoh that we ended up walking out of Egypt with Moses and Aaron. But I'm going to get this last scripture, and I'm going to end it here for the sake of time. Give me, Proverbs 22:3.
It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, and verse 3.
Okay.
A prudent man foreseeth the evil, and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished.
So he said, a prudent man sees what's happening. He's going to prepare himself, but the simple pass on. They don't heed the warning. So let this be an opportunity. If you haven't been preparing, not more so even financially or substance that's tangible, but more importantly, prepare your spirit. We have Passover on the horizon. Things are going to be, this is always a season of tribulation that we've seen a storm that we've weathered before. So, man, let's really, as we prepare our homes and the physical things, that we prepare and also put that focus on the spiritual things, getting right with the Most High. Because we're all going to die. There's only, 2 who were ever translated without death. So, but the important part about your death is making it mean something, leaving behind a legacy that had value and had depth. Moses been dead for thousands of years, we're still talking about him. Christ been dead for thousands of years, we're still talking about him. But it's in the way that they move spiritually. So prepare, of course, with these things, but also prepare your spirit inward and outward. with that, you have anything you want to add?
You summed it up. That was good.
All praises to the Most High.
Praise.
Well, we're going to wrap it up here, Israel. Please tune in. We have another class coming up this Friday, this Sabbath, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Tune in, be edified by the word. And with that, I say shalom.